Hello and welcome to PA117. We are week 1 and my name is Krista. I'll be your instructor for this course. And this is a new class that I'm teaching for me. So I'm just learning it just like you are and going through and picking out some of the lectures that I'd like to lecture on. And so the first thing I did was just grab the book. This is your book, Essentials for Law and Ethics of Pharmacy Technician. You should have got this in the mail. If you have not already, make sure that you have ordered it and it should be on its way. So looking at this book, I thought right off, this looks so boring. There is no pictures. I am a visual learner. There's no pictures in this book. How the heck am I going to get through this lecture without any pictures? But then I actually turned to a couple of the first pages and read who the author was. And it's a guy by Kenneth Strandberg. He is actually a program director for a pharmacy technician program in North Dakota. And so it struck me that this was actually written for pharmacy technicians. And that's what he says in his acknowledgement, is that there are tons of books out there written for pharmacists, for master's degree programs, but nobody on our level who is actually for the pharmacy technicians. So it really enlightened me to say, yay, I think I'm going to like this book. It's going to really be at my level and not really talk over it. And when we're talking about law and ethics, that's what you want. You want something that really applies to you as a pharmacy technician in the pharmacy, and not that's going to be above your head that you're never going to use. These are things that actually will apply to you in the pharmacy. And so I just wanted to read you that first chapter of chapter 1, which is your reading this week, is chapter number 1. And it says, the practice of pharmacy is one of the most regulated activities in our society. Imagine, just based on the differences in law and regulations applying to the two endeavors, how much simpler it is to operate a card and a gift shop than to operate a pharmacy. Pharmacy laws and regulations are so extensive because of the basic nature of our work. We routinely handle substances for which an error in dispensing can be fatal. An error in distribution, shipping, or purchasing can result in the availability of dangerous drugs on the street through illegal, unregulated channels. To practice within legal limits, pharmacy personnel have much to remember. Most of these limits and requirements have resulted from problems that occurred in the past or have been put into place in effort to avoid improper events. And so we're really going to learn some history of maybe what has happened in the past, of why these laws have now been put into place. And then your discussion is really going to say, have you been in a situation where you think you might have seen a law to put into place, or you might have seen this law enacted? And so that's interesting to me. I really think that we're going to have a good time going through some of these laws and figuring out, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we regulated the way we are? And it's because of these laws and ethics. So I'm glad to do that. Something that I've read about your discussion is it's about malpractice. So page number 5, you talk about malpractice. That's the issue of professional negligence when pharmacists or technicians accidentally make mistakes through the thoughtlessness or carelessness. They are legally accountable for the consequences, and compensation is negotiated for and paid to the patient by the insurance companies that carry their professional insurance policies. So, for example, it will actually be, because pharmacy technicians don't have to carry malpractice, it would have to be through the pharmacist license. So really, when a pharmacist is hiring you, they're entrusting you that you know what you're doing, because they're actually extending their license to you so that when you're filling their prescription, they're checking it, of course, but they're trusting that you know what you're doing so that they can check it and send it on. And that, basically they're double checking. You're filling it correct, and then they're checking it. They don't want to have to be catching errors all the time. And so if something comes up where a malpractice issue might come up, then that is on them. And that is the malpractice company would have to support the pharmacist. And so there's 2 different cases. There is called a civil case. These rarely go to trial because settlements are almost always negotiated out of court. During the early part of the case, a preliminary motion may be filed to which the pharmacist or technician tries to have the case dismissed. This is called a motion for summary judgment. If the judge grants a motion for summary judgment, the case is dismissed. If not, it then proceeds to the out-of-court settlement. Civil cases proceed to this point and then are settled. Pre-trial motions, that kind of stuff. And then there is a criminal law, and criminal law deals with the relationship between the individual and society as a whole. It is called into action when people break a law. They have done something against all of society, and they are prosecuted by the government's attorneys for breaking the law. For example, if people steal, the state can prosecute them for this theft as a criminal act. But a civil law is called on when the relationship between individuals presents problems. And there are two segments, like contracts and torts. And you might need to go over these. This is something that comes up on the quiz. Contracts are agreements into which two people enter. For example, if a painter agrees to paint your house for a price, they don't do a good job, you can sue them for breach of contract. Torts, or T-O-R-T-S, are obligations that the law enforces between two or more people. For example, pharmacists must dispense the right medication as prescribed. Civil lawsuits are prosecuted by attorneys hired by people who feel they were treated wrongly. Government lawyers are not involved. So civil lawsuits, so say accidentally that a pharmacist fills the wrong prescription, they are meant to fill the right prescription. That is a civil law that then they can take out of court, and the malpractice can then decide, well, was that negligent? Did that hurt the patient? Are we going to pay for their health bills? Did they miss work because of it? And it goes on to talking about that down in the next chapter. So you can read all about that if that's something. And then if you'll go on to page 7, 6 and 7, really at the bottom of the page, it's still talking about malpractice, but it's talking about the 3 different things that they look at when they're looking at malpractice. If this is missing, then they have a malpractice case, basically. A breach of duty occurred, damages are significant, meaning the patient was harmed, and the professional's action or inaction is the direct cause. And so the pharmacist or the technician who filled the prescription wrong was actually the cause of the reason it went out wrong. So those are the 3 different things that they look into when they're deciding, was that negligent? And so it goes on to talk about that. Really, it's a quick chapter, 8 pages, 9 pages. It's got some questions at the end, but really your assignment is to write a 300-word essay on a topic. When you're doing that, make sure that you are just like a discussion, basically. But I would like for you to start with an intro. I'm going to talk about this, and this is what I believe. This is what I found to support that, and then a conclusion. And I know it's only 300 words, but let's try to practice that because you have a lot of final papers due, and I want to see that style implemented every time. All right, so that sums up that. I've talked about your discussion, your assignment, and then also your quiz. It is only 10 points out of 8 pages. You should do fine. So take your time on that. Make sure you look up the answers in your book, that kind of thing. If you have any questions about this week, don't hesitate to email me. That's the quickest way to get a hold of me, or text me. You can find all my contact information in my contact info under the announcements. Otherwise, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week.